Go ahead.
All right. Well, hello, everyone. I'm not in my office like I usually am. I'm out doing some sampling. So you're seeing me in a little bit of a different situation. So first things first, my name is Ivory, and I'm a wildlife ecologist from the University of Florida. So what is a scientist? What is a wildlife ecologist? Those are a bunch of big, weird words. So what a wildlife ecologist is I study how plants and animals are affected by where they live. So like today, I'm testing water here in Silver River. So we're on the Silver River right now. And we're testing water quality to see how good the water is. That could be how cold it is, how hot it is. It could be how much stuff is floating around, if there's plants for the fish to eat, that kind of stuff. Another thing I study is frogs. And maybe we'll see some frogs today, I'm not sure. But if not, I can go and show you a little bit more later, hopefully. So first, why would I study frogs? Because frogs is what I normally study. Frogs are food for a lot of different animals, but they also eat a lot of animals. Frogs can eat insects and other small bugs. But we're having an issue with right now with frogs in Florida. So frogs in Florida usually only get to about 3 inches long, 2 inches long. So they're about this big. But a few years back, there was a hurricane that knocked out some pet stores that had reptiles in it. And one of those reptiles was a Cuban tree frog. Well, Cuban tree frogs can grow to be the size of my hand, if not bigger. And they end up eating all of our Florida frogs. And that's a big problem because we want our Florida frogs. Florida frogs are food for other snakes or for birds. And so these Cuban tree frogs are eating other animals' food. I'm sure by now some of you are already starting to learn the scientific method. And so scientific method, let me miss some people. The scientific method starts out by observations, and from those observations you can make hypothesis, and then you do your experiment, and then you gather your results. Well, that observation stage can come in a couple different ways. It can be making inferences from what you read online, or from just looking around the world and making your observations. And that's sort of how it happened for me. I was interested in frogs just because I think they're really cool. But as I started to learn about them, I realized some other stuff that I didn't think I was going to learn about frogs. So what I did is I built houses for frogs to live in. Maybe I'll send your teacher some pictures of them later. Well, sorry, I got distracted from a bird. So I built these frog houses just because I wanted to go and catch frogs and learn about them. But I started to realize that sometimes those Cuban tree frogs I was telling you about, the ones that shouldn't be here, started to live with our Florida frogs that are supposed to go and be here, and thought that was kind of cool to learn. And so from what I observed, I started an experiment testing, can these frogs live together? Now, how big do you think the biggest frog in the world is? You can go ahead and discuss with your class for a minute, and then we can pick out a few different people to go and give me their guesses. So just 30 seconds or so, give me some thoughts.
So what are your thoughts, guys? How big do you think the biggest frog is in the world? So if he said those Cuban ones are the size of his hand, would that be like 2 hands? Would that be 2 of your hands? Okay, so about a foot.
Okay.
Okay.
Any other guesses?
Okay, Chromebook, 2 hands, a foot. As big as your mask.
All right, so I'll go ahead and let you know how big they can get. So whoever said the Chromebook was pretty close. So these big frogs are called the Goliath Frog. They live in Africa. They can get to about 1.5 feet long and weigh like 3 to 4 pounds. So like that'd be very large. But the ones we have in Florida only get to like 2 inches or so. So we don't have that big of frogs. But you can see that as they get bigger, they start to be a problem. Sometimes these frogs can get so big that if a car hits them, it can actually cause damage. So those Goliath frogs are absolutely enormous. Some other cool stuff about frogs is, so I work with tree frogs. So tree frogs live in the trees, but there's also some frogs that live where I am now. So I have another question I want you guys to answer. What what do you think are different between tree frogs and frogs that live in the water? Again, 30 seconds or so, give me what you think. What can be different between tree frogs and frogs that live in water?
Okay, tree frogs don't jump as much, friendly. Okay, their eyes, and their color, Cheyenne, their size, Leanna.
Okay. I'm hearing some good answers.
What about maybe their feet and maybe like a tackiness? So that because in the sense of the jumping, like a tree frog probably needs to adhere to the tree, whereas the one that is in the water needs to adhere to anything. He's just jumping on water, right?
Right. So you're giving examples. So, of course, color is a big difference. Frogs come in many different colors. So there's actually about 6,000 different types of frogs in the world. So there's lots of different types of frogs. And it's pretty much half live in trees, half live in the water. Well, the ones that live in trees, they got to look like bark. And so you'll get a bunch of grays or greens. So grays to blend in with bark, and you'll get some greens to go and blend in with the leaves. It's kind of similar with water too. You'll get a bunch of green frogs because they can blend in with lily pads. Their belly, like the belly of a frog, will have spots on it, and lily pads have spots underneath theirs, underneath the lily pad. And so they can blend in from the underneath. So if an alligator is looking up at them, it looks like it's just a lily pad. And then from the top, they're green. And so it looks like a lily pad. So a bird, if it wants to fly by, it doesn't see them. But your teacher had a great idea whenever she mentioned their feet. So tree frogs, they need to go and stick to the trees. And so they have big toe pads. I mean, those Cuban tree frogs, even though they only get to the size of my hand, they'll have toe pads the size of my fingertip. I mean, they get enormous with their toe pads. But the frogs that live in the water, they have webs that go between their feet. So it'd be like every gap right there would have a web so they can swim extremely fast. So that was a really good point. Another interesting thing about frogs is, so they're amphibians, which means that they live half of their life in the water, or some of their life in the water, and some of their life on land. But it also means that they can breathe through their skin. And so a frog can be in the air and breathe air with their mouth, or if they're underwater, they can release the carbon dioxide from their, like how we breathe out, or they can breathe in through their skin. So their skin can take in oxygen and let out the CO2. I think that was all I had. So now we can open up to any questions you guys have. So just raise your hand. Your teacher can pick someone and give me a question.
Does anyone have any questions for Mr. Ivory? One thing that I would like to see you discuss is a little bit more about the scientific method in the respect of, like, do you repeat your experiments? Do other scientists help you or repeat your experiments? And if so, why? Why is that important?
So actually, whenever I started my experiment, I was replicating someone else's experiment. So whenever I was going to school at the University of Florida, I had a professor, his name's Dr. Johnson, and his entire life has been working with tree frogs. And so I just wanted to go and see what he was up to. And so I just saw his methods and copied them for my own. So I started out, like I was saying, doing the research, which just for me was observing the outside world. And so I saw where frogs were living, and I wanted to go and see if there was differences between where the frogs were living. And so for my methods, I have 4 different houses in 3 different environments. So I replicate my experiment 4 times in 3 different places. So I have 4 houses in 3 places, is basically what I was trying to say. And also I have I'm sure you guys use Google Documents. Well, I have like a sheet that has all of my all of my data in it. So I can tell what was the weather like whenever I caught this frog? Was it raining or not? Where did I find it at? How big was it? Was anyone living with it? So I collect all of this data because it can matter in different situations. Because right now I might not think to care about, was it raining on October 20th at 3 p.m.? But it may matter if I'm looking at my results a year from now or 2 years from now. And so I'm doing my experiment section is going to last me 9 months. So you may do a science fair project that only takes you a couple of days to complete. My experiment has taken me 9 months to collect all my data.
And how important is it that your data is written so that others can copy it? So like you copied Dr. Johnson's, what if someone else wants to copy yours? Like, why is it important that your data is so accurate?
It's important because if I'm only testing mine 4 times, then like how much conclusions can I draw from that? I need other people to replicate it, and maybe my experiment was just a fluke. Maybe it was just a one-off thing. It's never going to happen again. So if other people replicate mine, it can either prove that I was right, or it can show that I was wrong. And it's okay to be wrong. That's what science is. Science is being wrong and finding out what you got to do to be right.
I love that you said that it's okay to be wrong, and somebody might find out that you were wrong, and that is definitely a part of science.
Yes,
All right,
science is all wrong.
Ivory. Questions for Mr. Ivory, Aiden? What is what? Rarest? What is the rarest frog?
The rarest frog? Because there's 6,000 different types of frogs in the world, we're finding more out every single year. And so I would say what the rarest frog is one we haven't even found yet. If you go down to South America in the rainforest, the Amazon rainforest, there's frogs that every year we're finding more of them. So I would say the one is the rarest we don't know about.
So even within Florida, there are obviously several thousand species, I would assume, correct?
There's probably about 100 or so species in Florida of frogs.
Okay.
But we're still finding out more and more.
And they differ from the location within the state, correct?
Right. So they've been well adapted to one specific area. So like green tree frogs, they have to survive in like a oaky hammock because the oak hammock has those green leaves that green tree frogs blend in on. But if you go to where there's a bunch of pine trees, that green might not fit in as well. And so, yeah, every specific place has their specific frog.
Yeah. How many frogs are in your houses that you have found?
Can you repeat that for me?
How many frogs are in your houses that you have found?
So I started my project about 2 months ago, and here at the museum, at Silver River Museum, I've found, I think, about 5 to 10 frogs, two Cuban tree frogs, and the rest have been green tree frogs or squirrel tree frogs. But I got so excited, I put them in my house, and every single day whenever I go home, I have frogs at my own house. So at my house, I probably got 75 at this point.
Okay. Kaylee? Are there such things as poisonous frogs?
Yes, you have your poison dart frogs. That's off the top of my head. So if you go down to the Amazon in South America, you have poison dart frogs. And we actually have some in Florida too. And it's because people take them as pets and then they realize that they can't have them as a pet. Like they're not good at owning one. So we have them out in the wild in Florida.
Carry on. Do frogs have an individual sound or a sound of a species?
Yes, so each frog has their own species, or sorry, their own sound. Each frog has their own sound. My favorite one is the southern chorus frog. It sounds like a bunch of marbles clacking together. So it's a bunch of marbles shaking in a bag. That's what they sound like.
Okay. Sean? What is the smallest frog you have found?
Well, just yesterday, I found a baby squirrel tree frog, and it was the size of my fingernail, just like my pinky fingernail. So that's pretty small. But there's also some frogs that only grow to be that big.
Okay. Jessica? So he has said he's got about like 75 at his house, but he's got about 5 to 9 in his houses that he built. Elizabeth? So what are can you describe the frogs that you have in your houses to the kids? Like what their color,
Sure. I can totally do that. So, the frogs I'm trying to catch are tree frogs. So because I'm trying to catch tree frogs, the houses I built kind of look like trees. It's really just a PVC pipe that you go and stick in the ground, and the frogs hide inside of it to get cover because birds and snakes and all that kind of stuff. So since I'm trying to catch tree frogs, all of the frogs that I've caught have been green tree frogs, which have big toe pads, and they're all green, and they have like white like mascara on. It's kind of like how I describe it, or white eyeliner. Squirrel tree frogs, they are blotchy, so like they have spots all over across their body. They kind of look like bark. So they're all gray with like black spots on them. And then I've caught the Cuban tree frogs, which even though they're invasive, I think they're super cool still. So their head, like how you have a forehead and your skin can move on your forehead, their forehead, the skin is fused, it's stuck to the skull. So the skin on their forehead can't move at all. But they get absolutely massive, like again, the size of my hand.
Okay, Cheyenne? What is the most common type of frog?
The green tree frog. Here in Florida, majority of the time you're gonna catch green tree frogs.
And are those the little ones that are like on your door as you go in the house? And
yeah, most of those are the green tree frogs. You'll sometimes get some Cuban tree frogs to do that, but green tree frogs.
Okay, Kaylee? Yes. Yes. Sean? Oh, Jalissa? Are frogs what? Yes, different colors, yes. Darion? Frogs have like multiple colors on their skin. Yes. Frogs can be various colors all in one frog, correct?
Yes. Cuban tree frogs come in like 10 different colors. Yeah. I have another little a fact I want to tell you that maybe it'll spark some questions. So, do you think that frogs have ears?
Oh, do we think frogs have ears? Thumbs up for yes, thumbs down for no.
No. Okay, I see some no's. I see some yeses.
More no's than yeses.
So I would say both are right. So frogs don't have an outer part of their ear, but they have an eardrum. And so if you look on some frogs, you'll see this little circle behind their eyes. So like right here, you'll see a little circle, and that can sense the vibrations. So if how your eardrum senses vibrations, those little, it's called a operculum, those can sense vibrations as well.
So that is probably what they use to also sense like predator and prey?
Yeah.
And what is a frog's primary diet?
That can be some insects. Some can eat some berries and whatnot, but mainly it's little small insects.
Whereas what is their biggest predator?
Their biggest predator, I would say, is snakes. Baby, smaller snakes will go and eat. We're going to try to show you guys some manatees in a second if I can get close enough.
Have you guys ever seen a manatee? No. I want to see one too. Hold on.
Let's see. We're creeping up on it right now.
So do you guys know where the Silver River is? No.
Ooh, I have a question for you. So do you guys know the difference between mammals, reptiles, and amphibians? Have you learned about that?
Not yet. That's the fourth.
Not yet? So humans were mammals, which just means that we have live babies instead of like having an egg. Well, manatees, even though they live in the water and you think maybe they're like a fish, they're not. They actually have live babies too. And so a second ago, that's what we saw was a baby manatee. It was pretty small. So manatees can go to like 6 feet, 7 feet sometimes, and they're like the size of a cow. They're called sea cows sometimes. But this was only like a 2-foot one. It was a lot smaller. But I think we might have lost it, sadly.
So they are not familiar with where the Silver River is. So
okay, so the Silver River it's in Silver Springs,
which is where we are.
Which is where you are. Yeah, exactly. So the Silver River connects to a bunch of other rivers, which can eventually go and take you out into the ocean. So this spring that we're at, this Silver Springs head spring, all the water that's coming out of this spring goes into the ocean eventually. All right, we're creeping back up.
So do you know where Silver Springs, the attraction is? So on 40, where the old Wild Waters was, they tore down. Oh no! Where the water slides were that they tore down? Yeah. So right next door is an entrance. You don't put your boat in there. Remind me where you put your boat in?
You put your boat in at the other end of the parking lot. All right, here we can go in the manatee. See it?
Oh, do you see it?
And there's another one right here. And you can see the tail right here. So manatees can swim pretty fast, but they can't dive down very fast. And so sometimes they'll get hit by a boat, and you can see the tail got hit by a boat.
Yeah.
And he has scratches all up and down his back. You see this one has scratches on its back? That's from all the boats hitting its back.
And they have to come up and breathe. They breathe air.
Yep, ma'am. Yep, they breathe air just like we do. And so these manatees eat the grass. And so all this grass right here is what this manatee's gonna eat.
So, and they like warm water, correct?
Yes, so manatees follow warm water. And while springs may be cold whenever you swim in it, it's warm for them. So manatees will stay in the springs during the winter time to stay warm. If they go out in the ocean, it might be too cold for them. And like I was saying before, they get stunted and they'll just stop eating and they won't be able to live.
Cool. So
You guys are very, very lucky.
are you close enough to the head of the spring, like at the attraction? Because am I correct in saying they will come all the way up to the head of the spring where you can see them from the attraction, correct?
Yes, from the attraction, you can see them. Whenever we started this Zoom call, I was just leaving the head spring. But now we're a little bit away now.
Okay.
But I don't know how familiar you guys are with Crystal River, Florida, but they have Three Sister Springs. That's where I'm from, is right by Three Sister Springs. And in the wintertime, we've set records for having 600 manatees in one spring. 600 manatees.
Yes. Because even though you might think the water is cold at 72 degrees, specifically in the winter, it's warmer to them than the ocean would be.
Yes, the ocean can be a lot colder than that sometimes. Exactly. And manatees can stay warm because they have a lot of fat on them. They're not a lot more muscular like maybe humans would be. They have a lot more fat on them to stay warm.
Very good. All right. Anything else, Mr. Ivory?
I have no more. No, that's about it.
Okay. We need to scoot. But I'm going to try to connect with you same time, same place, 1:15.
Yes, so it'll be same Zoom link at 1:15. We're talking about some snakes and maybe some other reptiles.
Okay, I don't know how that's gonna work because my kiddos are gonna be online, but we're gonna try to make it work.
Okay, I'll try to get on that one early so that I can admit people and that kind of stuff. Help out if I can.
Perfect.
All right, thank you.
Everybody say thank you. Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.